The war did not end when the guns went silent. It only learned how to hide. On a cold morning in April 1945, as the last echoes of artillery faded across Europe, an American officer stood inside a ruined factory on the outskirts of Germany and realized something that history books would never say out loud. The machines were still warm. The blueprints were untouched. The workers were gone. What lay before him was not a battlefield victory, but an opportunity. The factory had once produced precision components for the German war machine. Now it produced nothing. To the soldiers passing through, it was another symbol of defeat. To this officer, it was proof that wars were no longer won only by bombs and bullets. They were won by what survived after the smoke cleared. That moment would quietly reshape the modern world. No parade would celebrate it, no monument would be built. But from that day forward, power would no longer belong only to generals and presidents. It would belong to those who understood logistics, industry, information, and money. And the United States understood faster than anyone else. As American troops advanced deeper into Europe, they were not just seizing territory, they were seizing minds. Scientists, engineers, economists, factory managers. Entire systems of knowledge were being boxed, labeled, and shipped west, sometimes willingly, sometimes not. Officially, the mission was called reconstruction. Unofficially, it was something else entirely. In Washington, planners had already accepted a hard truth. The next war would not be fought with tanks alone. It would be fought with supply chains, corporate power, research laboratories, and influence that could stretch across oceans without firing a single shot. The United States entered World War II late, but it intended to leave the war owning the future. Before the war, America was powerful, but not dominant. Britain still controlled global finance. Germany controlled industrial innovation. Japan controlled manufacturing efficiency. The war destroyed all three. America survived intact. That was not an accident. While Europe burned, American factories expanded. While cities turned to rubble, American infrastructure modernized. While empires collapsed, American corporations learned how to scale production to levels never seen in human history. By 1945, the United States was producing more steel than the rest of the world combined. More oil, more aircraft, more vehicles, more food. And it had something else no one could match. It had leverage. When the war ended, Europe was starving. Banks were empty, governments were weak, people were desperate. Into this vacuum stepped American money, carefully controlled, strategically deployed, and never free. The aid came with conditions. Factories rebuilt with American loans bought American machines. Roads funded by American dollars moved American goods. Governments stabilized by American assistance aligned with American interests. This was not charity. This was architecture. A new global system was being designed, one where war could be replaced by dependence and conquest by contracts. At the center of this system was an idea so powerful it rarely needed enforcement. If you controlled production, transportation, and finance, you controlled outcomes. And America intended to control all three. Behind closed doors, military planners met with business executives. Generals spoke the language of profit. CEOs learned the language of security. The line between national defense and corporate expansion began to disappear. Weapons manufacturers did not shut down after the war. They rebranded, they diversified, they merged. Logistics companies that had supplied armies now supplied continents. Intelligence gathered during wartime became market intelligence. Psychological warfare evolved into advertising.
propaganda learned to smile. The battlefield had changed, and most people never noticed. In small towns across America, veterans returned home and went to work in factories that no longer made tanks, but tractors, refrigerators, and automobiles. The skills of war were quietly repurposed for commerce. Efficiency learned under fire became productivity under profit. Meanwhile, overseas, American advisors helped foreign governments design economic systems that looked suspiciously familiar. Open markets, dollar-based trade, legal frameworks friendly to foreign investment. Resistance existed, of course. Some nations tried to remain independent. Some leaders pushed back. Some paid the price. But the beauty of the system was that it rarely needed violence. When money stopped flowing, governments collapsed on their own. When supply chains broke, populations turned against their leaders. When credit disappeared, revolutions failed before they began. Power had become invisible. By the time the Cold War began, the United States was no longer just a country, it was an operating system. Military bases doubled as trade hubs. Aid programs doubled as intelligence networks. Cultural exports, movies, music, fashion, reshaped identities faster than any occupation force ever could. Even enemies learned to play by American rules because there were no alternatives left. The officer who stood in that ruined factory in 1945 never imagined how large this system would grow, but he understood its core truth in that moment among the broken machines. The future belonged to whoever could turn destruction into control, and America had learned how to do exactly that. Not loudly, not brutally, but permanently.